What's going on, everybody? This is the Blockchain Backer, bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we're going to be taking a peek over here at the Bitcoin price chart and the altcoin market to discuss the state of where the market is at currently right now, how it's an exciting time in the market, and the things that I see looking forward. Now, of course, everybody will think it's exciting just because we have a big fat green candle over here in the crypto market, with Bitcoin having that big fat weekly breakout last week and able to sustain it into the weekly close, closing there at $34,500 for last week. The big breakout of like the 220 plus day range has happened. Not only did it break, but it closed right near the top. So an absolutely stunning move over here on Bitcoin. We've talked a lot about this particular range and how we've been behaving and how retail sentiment was exactly the same from 2020, really the same kind of time period, right? In 2020, it was like September and October. Then there at the end of October, it ended up breaking out of the range, similar to what we've done really right now. Here in 2023, it was there on October 23rd. Back there in 2020, it was on October 21st. Well, that's really irrelevant. The amazing thing is just price structure, price behavior, and getting our way out after battling through that pretty rough time period there in August, September, and here in the earlier part of October. But the question remains right now, do we continue to waddle sideways in here for practically a month, similar to as we did over here in 2020? Or are we still just following along with 2016, in which all these peaks really happen about the same time? These ones happen within hours of each other on day like 300 after the peak. These happen within just a couple of hours of each other. Then we end up breaking from our range on day like 700 within just a couple of hours of each other. And then here we go, we leave the range together as well. So what happened here in 2016 was that really we just kind of kept marching up, and then we built a whole new range. We talked about this extensively over here on Bitcoin, on how the recoveries have been, where we spend time in a range, we shift up to a new range, spend time in a range, shift up to a new range. And our equivalent to all of this is as if we're just leaving this range right here. But this has been the behavior of Bitcoin throughout history in recovery. Range, break, backtest, range, breakout, backtest, range. And that's been how we've been behaving currently right now. So this is still up in the air if we are just following along with 2016. Considering the timing of these have been so on point, what did happen with this is the peak of it came in right around November 1st, November 2nd, November 3rd. So if we see Bitcoin kind of like break out from where it's at right now and get to, $38,000, $39,000, $40,000 or something like that, and not continue along grinding its way through here with some type of sign of strength where it's really waddling through. And I'll get back to that on why I say sign of strength and how that is. But if we see it actually just go in for the full-blown breakout, this may have to be in consideration here, right? And if this is the behavior that we're following along with, well, in 2016, we didn't see altcoins really rally at all. Outside of a select few, like Ethereum and Dash and a couple others, they go back to their all-time highs during all this stuff. But the most of the market still just continued sideways for another year, as that's how long it took for Bitcoin to get to the all-time high, which, we're talking about, hey, if we go up here, then we spend another 200 days working on another range, as we do in here, and, as you do in here. So I know that's not everybody's favorite scenario to think, hey, this week, maybe it's exciting, but then get ready. We go back into 7 more months of boredom, just like we came out of. As of right now, though, it's not the case. It was a very beautiful correction and recovery, and washing machined a lot of people out at the lows. And that's what you really want to see. We want to see big liquidation events, capitulation by retail, selling lower to buy lower, right? 23K, 20K, 16K, 12K, and then price leaves them behind. That means there's buyers waiting on the sideline who have gotten washing machined and want to get back in. So there's still that additional buy pressure sitting on the sidelines. And for all we know, a lot of them may be so vengeful, they could just end up shorting, right? And then get the shorts blown out. But as we continue with this conversation, we're going to talk about like bullish breakouts coming for the cryptocurrency market, for the altcoin market, for Bitcoin. But we're really going to kind of focus on this going on in here as if we were building some type of sign of strength as we did here in 2020. In the event that price does break out and goes really fast, that idea may get scrubbed pretty quick. And then we have to suddenly start saying, hey, things got carried away a little bit too fast. That's really very similar to what happened in 2016. So if Bitcoin can just kind of continue waddling around, you can see what happens in here. It keeps setting new highs. People would likely think if we go above $35,000, hey, it's a breakout. As you can see, this is just a series of higher highs and higher lows that just continues waddling around in here, and they're not actual breakouts. So any new high price doesn't actually mean we're breaking out. It's just that's what would happen in a situation like this, that you keep setting new highs and you keep setting new higher lows. They're not breakouts. They're just ranging, building strength, trying to break out. But, if we do go for a real breakout, okay, I have to start kind of considering this idea happening in here, as the timing has been incorrect. And still to this day, it hasn't proven otherwise. It just hasn't proven that it's doing anything different than this as of yet. But what's been really interesting so far about this current period is that we have already seen some altcoin movement. I brought this up last week that a lot of the big moves we've seen in the market have happened really in the others category, things outside of the top 10. That if we look at the top 100, we actually have to go a pretty good ways down before we actually get to Bitcoin to see Bitcoin as a top performer of the week, right? In the last 7 days, up 13%. Whereas we have quite a bit of the market that has done better than that this week, which of course isn't the narrative out there. We've seen things like Chainlink getting breakouts in here. We've seen people getting excited about Solana, foaming at the mouth, FOMOing over Solana at $30, where they wouldn't touch it at 13 to 10. And we've seen TRB or Teller, which I'd never heard of before, absolutely massively running here, up over 1,000% really in the last 2 months, really just here in the last little breakout move there for Bitcoin, up another 153%. But we do already see an altcoin that is doing big numbers. I don't own any of this. Like I said, I've never even heard of it before. I normally don't even bring up altcoins like that I've never heard of before, but it is over there on Coinbase. So if they've vetted it, then okay. But I'm not buying that. Not a chance in the world I'm buying something after it's up 1,000%. A reasonable pullback happening in here is already a 62% loss just to pull back. So I'm always looking at percentages in here. That's something that's something for me I'm not touching, but I like seeing it, right? I like seeing this kind of stuff happening in the market because we don't see this in drawdowns, right? I mean, this is 2021. This thing's just been drawn down for forever. And then here we are in the last 2 months. Boom, we're seeing stuff go. We're seeing Chainlink consolidating for a year and a half. Boom, it escapes the range. We see nobody willing to touch Solana. Boom, everybody's FOMOing for Solana. And while if this is our case here for Bitcoin, and if this is how things are playing out in here, well, this was the lead up to the final moment before things did get really exciting in the market. Here we are, October and November. Remember November of 2020, like the bull run really only lasted until like April and May, right? It was just months, right? And then it was over, right? We go through years of torture in 2018, 2019, 2020. We get C19 in 2020. And then we get this epic rally that lasts, just a few months over here, late 2020, early 2021. And should we not be doing something like 2016 if we finally break away from this whole structure happening in here and we are following something along these lines? I brought this up last week as well, kind of keeping an eye on how the altcoins behaved in a moment like this right in here for Bitcoin, and that we could see that in there they rally up with Bitcoin into this moment. But then as Bitcoin continues kind of grinding these last few percentage points, the altcoins kind of pull back into this moment. And you could see that really if we add a bunch of them on here to see that it was consistent amongst all of them, right? They all rally up with Bitcoin. They're all in unison with Bitcoin. And then finally here, suddenly there's a divergence that happens in here. And so I'm keeping that in mind that that is possible. I brought it up last week that if that's the case, right? If this is the whole game being played here in the cryptocurrency market, there's potentially just a couple of weeks to try to figure it out, how you want to handle all of this. And as we get here right now, I brought it up a lot in the past, 6 months that, taking a look at that developer data, especially when I went to Consensus there in the earlier part of this year in the springtime, learning more about developer data and how those correlated with price behavior in 2021 to improve odds. I was up very late this weekend. I spent all day Friday, all day Saturday, and Saturday night. I didn't go to bed till about 2 o'clock in the morning on Saturday night because I was so entrenched in data and research to say, how do I want to have my portfolio positioned in the event that this is the thing that's going to end up happening? So I think what you have a lot of people doing is the same kind of stuff where they miss this whole rally looking for 23, 20, 16, 12K. Now probably getting the idea is that Bitcoin dominance is going to rule the world. But to point out the problems with those ideas is that you have Solana. This is up 300%. That's substantially more than Bitcoin's up. And what you have is you have people following for Solana right now, right? The story is the same for Chainlink, right? These ones have already broken out, right? So the opportunities to win on the Bitcoin versus Chainlink or Bitcoin versus Solana, those opportunities are already gone. And eventually, as time goes on, I suspect more and more will do that. And the leaders and the strong ones of the market are probably going to go before you're ready to time the market perfectly. Fortunately, I do own both of these assets. I've stated that. You guys know I was buying Solana in here, and it's kind of like one of those reminders of what life is like. And I try to share that with you guys on this channel of what sentiment is like. I think it's one of the most important things to know. I'm always talking about emotions, but I'm always bringing up sentiment at the same time, that the herd, the general public, is always going to be on one side and in one disagreement, that one asset is dead or one is the winner. And remember, absolutely nobody would touch Solana in here or here or here. And then now they all want it, right? Price influences sentiment more than anything else out there. You guys know I've had Chainlink as well as one of my accumulation bags down in here. Happy to see that one get out for sure. But, I'm not buying these anymore. I'm not going to buy Chainlink. I'm not going to buy Solana because those have already gotten carried up. And so when I look at my portfolio, I have to say to myself, okay, what are the things that are similar there between Solana, similar there between Chainlink and Bitcoin, and historical performance of the altcoin market that have been good, right? And a lot of that is that developer data. And so I keep kind of reiterating, if something like this happens, for me, it's like a golden opportunity because I'm getting myself prepared. I'm getting all my data organized. I'm trying to figure out who has the best chance of winning. And I'm definitely not going into it with the mindset of being like, you know what? There's only 3 that are going to be the winners, and I'm going to pick those 3. Math states otherwise, states the probabilities of that are pretty improbable that you're going to get 3, right? If you pick 3, you may get really lucky if one of them is a big winner. It's more like if you pick 5, maybe 1 is a really big winner, or if you pick 10, then 2 are really big winners. That seems to be kind of more of the statistical outcomes. But I've brought up the analogy of like a card counter, right? Trying to put the odds more in their favor. Are there things that you could do to try to change that 2 out of 10 into 3 out of 10 or into 4 out of 10? And that's really what I spent my entire weekend working on, and pretty pleased with some of the results. And I'll be putting that into a newsletter here in the next day or two. And then once I get through all of that, of course, in the coming weeks and stuff, we'll gradually talk about that here on the channel. And if you don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to, comparing developer behavior and returns, there's even a video over here on my website, way down in here under secret sauces, research data that improved odds, where we go through a lot of the data with comparing like the top 30 by market cap. So if you go to CoinMarketCap, you look at the top 30 and then comparing that with like developer data and saying, how would you have done if you weeded some stuff out to improve those odds? And so I spent my entire weekend trying to say, is there more data that we could find to weed those out? And I do think there is more. But I could say, going back to 2021, the things that really did have an impact on things that were able to get bigger runs or things that fell short was a lot of that activity on chain, the developer data. And in the case that there is some pullback in here during this time, as we're showing on here, right? What a glorious opportunity. And so, like I mentioned, over the last week, I've already gone and I've taken 20% of my Bitcoin and I've already rotated it into altcoins. All of that has already been outperforming Bitcoin. However, I'm not blind to the idea that, this may just be kind of the extension of those altcoins here for a second as they pull back, as Bitcoin tries to go for its actual breakout. And in the event that this keeps continuing down in here, I've kind of started really getting my list together, narrowing down my list, checking for weaknesses within my own cryptocurrency portfolio to say, do I have stuff in the wrong place? And getting ready, because the behavior we have even over here in the total market cap of crypto is as if we were at the sign of strength phase in Wyckoff accumulation. And if you caught markets in the morning last week, if you caught my Twitter page or x.com over the weekend in here, you could see that we have just finished up last point of support, working our way back up to the range height, trying to do sign of strength through the peak of the height of this range. And so you could see this in here, right? Where first we have preliminary support that pulls down in here, and then eventually the selling climax, right? This is what we have back here in 2022, right? Your preliminary support, then your selling climax, right? Automatic rally, secondary test, your secondary test in phase B, which is right below the selling climax, right? 5 waves back up, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then A, B, C for last point of support, right? A, B, C, last point of support, and then works our way back up to the peak of the range, back at the preliminary support, peak of range, working on sign of strength to eventually break out. So it would make a whole lot of sense if we have to really work through here, as we've seen before, because that's what our sign of strength phase has to do too. We have to really work out that area to try to break through that resistance. And it would make a lot of logical sense to have to do that here. The big question is, what will the dynamic look like between altcoins and Bitcoin and shifting back and forth between this time period? Will there be some that get out early? Will there be some that pull back more? That's going to be the big, fight and battle that's going to be going on here. And there's a good chance, if this is true, right, we could be in here for a couple of weeks, potentially into mid-November, waiting on Bitcoin to try to finally get out of there. And so that's why I'm really using this opportunity to do a lot of research. And right, with like that developer data, like this is a great time to brush up on it, get an understanding and build some conviction for yourself in the market, right? And that's what I'm doing. There's plenty of resources out there. Like Electric Capital puts out a good report showing full-time devs, part-time devs, one-time devs, total devs, dev count, dev trend changes from Electric Capital, the developer report. Santiment puts out a lot of developer activity in regards to 30-day average developer activity. They've got total active wallets or daily active wallets. What ones are people actually using daily? I know Masari report puts out a lot of stuff. So it's a great time to go just like, boom, plow into that stuff. Because if this is the case, right? And even if this ends up being the case, a lot of these charts look very similar out here in crypto. And when you really run all the numbers and you say, who's the better performer on average, right? You take a bucket of assets that all had high developer activity or developer growth, and then you compare that versus like the top 20 or top 30 assets by market cap. Like over here on coin market cap, take the top 30 in here, right? You run a simulation versus in 2021, and you say, hey, let's take the top 20, let's compare it to the ones of the top 20 with the most developer activity, and it's like clear as day. The ones that like the whole bucket of 20 that had the higher developer activity versus the top 20 from coin market cap, the developer activity ones perform significantly better, almost 2 times better or more than 2 times better than the top 20 did. So again, I'm not affiliated with any of these companies. I'm not affiliated with Electric Capital. They don't pay me to say this stuff. This is me just giving you resources, right? Electric Capital's developer report, Santiment, Masari Crypto. Those are places to get started and try to find more resources to get more data on those developers and what chains are actually being used. Because there's a lot of hype in crypto. There's a lot of talk about a lot of stuff in crypto and which one's going to be the next 100x gem. But right, is that all hype with no substance behind it? That'll be kind of the focus of things that we'll talk about in the coming weeks, as long as we do just kind of continue to do something like this in here, is talking about those different things, talking about where the strength in the market is underneath the hood. And I'm looking forward to it, because if this is the case, then we're entering a very, very exciting time period. We undoubtedly still have to be mindful of this. If for some reason, even if things like dramatically change, and if Bitcoin like turns around and U-turns and falls back into the 27s and 28s, like we talked about last week, oh boy, that's not good, right? So we're definitely talking bull stuff, and like invalidations of bull stuff, is like if getting back into the 28s and the 27s, like we talked about last week, that, if we get there, then we're going to quit all this talk that we're doing here right now. But as of right now, right, this is the thing that we should be, personally, I think we should be, I'm focusing on. That's what I'm focusing on. And I'm excited about it. And I'm excited about the education that I've picked up over the last several months, and especially the last weeks, in having a better understanding of things going on underneath the hood in the crypto market, and really looking forward to the time coming. So congrats to those who didn't get washing machined out down in here in September and October and made their way out to the promised lands. Here's with the market trying to grind its way through to get that sign of strength breakout in the total market cap of crypto. We're still waiting on the dynamic of how the altcoin market will play out in here during this phase, as we have seen divergences show up before. We haven't seen them yet, but they have happened before. Otherwise, we'll keep watching these guys continue their grinds as the altcoin market continues to wake up in here, outperforming Bitcoin in many, many, many sectors here in the crypto market. So very promising. My thoughts are we're probably paused out here for a couple of weeks, and it's going to be an opportunity for research. I think that's kind of the theme I'm kind of laying out with my mindset right now. Research, 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 build conviction, and then let the chips fall and let that market cap break out. As for this week, it'll be a pretty busy week over here. I'll be putting out a newsletter by tomorrow, really outlining a lot of developer stuff. We'll be having markets in the morning again tomorrow. We've already had it this morning. Wednesday, markets in the morning. And then also on Wednesday, we're going to be having the interest rate meeting by the Federal Reserve. It's expected that it'll be another pause. We'll hear what they have to say. We'll live stream that again on Wednesday. And we'll expect probably some volatility this week over there in the stock market. Hopefully a rebound, as we're coming off of a crazy week last week. Otherwise, crypto having just an absolutely glorious week and setting ourselves up for more excitement to come. And I think the show-stopping event, percentage-wise, is the altcoins, and we're already seeing that stuff happen already here in the market. So that's going to be it for this one, you guys. I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you're looking for something to do, of course, you could check out bcbacker.com. It's a course of over 40 videos and over 11 hours of content diving into all things crypto, especially in regards to charting, technical analysis, tools and indicators, setting up your own charts, Wyckoff, accumulation and distribution, Elliott wave theory, and then a lot of historical behavior of the crypto market that we talked about in this video, along with secret sauce such as the research data. That's available over here on bcbacker.com. There's a link down here in the description of each of my videos. $39 with no recurring subscription fees. Otherwise, guys, we did it. $24.7 thousand held. Here we are in the 34s. So I'll check in with you guys again tomorrow. I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.